So let's talk about this third element here, the public schools. What's so bad about public schools? Let me take you through and show you some statistics. Many times I've referenced the fact that we don't have children in the churches, and I really haven't given you any hard data on that. I've just said, hey, look at in your pews. Imagine in the pews, where are the kids? But now I want to really start to give you some more data on this and let you see that it's not just something I'm making up. It's not just something that you're seeing with your eyes. It's not true. Maybe you think, well, it's just our church. That's not true at all. It's church-wide in the United States of America. Here are some statistics, and I'll give you some little pie charts to help you see this. According to the Family Life Council of the Southern Baptist Convention, so this is the Southern Baptist think tank, as you might say it. According to the Southern Baptist, 88% of children raised in evangelical Christian homes leave the church after their 18th birthday and never come back. So 88% of the children are leaving and never coming back. I know a lot of people think, well, they all just come back. Well, if they all came back, we'd see them in the pews today. We'd see them at 30 and 40. We'd have a bunch of 30 and 40-year-olds in the churches with families, but we wouldn't have any 20 to, say, 35-year-olds in there. But we don't. So the reality is that most of these children don't come back, and I think you know that if you think about that. Here's sort of a graphic of this. We've got 88%, the blue part of this chart here, 88% leave the church, and 12% stay in the church. And that feels about right, doesn't it? That feels just about right in terms of what we see and experience. Let's look at a couple of other. Here's a Barna research. You know, I don't know how much what I think of Barna research. So much of the time, the Southern Baptist and Barna and groups like this, Lifeway, they become so mechanical that they really have no real good. They try and measure themselves into rebirth, measure themselves into revitalization, and you can't do that. You have to look at spiritual causes. But anyway, sometimes the information can be helpful because it confirms problems that we see, issues that we see in the churches. According to Barna research, nearly 2/3 of 18 to 29-year-olds who grew up in the church have withdrawn from church involvement as adults after having been involved as teens. So in other words, you've got children, Christian children, who are involved in church as teenagers, but as soon as they hit 18, from 18 to 29, 2/3 of them leave. So we're starting to get into some detail about when these children are leaving, actually walking out the door and not coming back. And so Barna shows us that, according to this, 2/3 of them in their 18 to 20, so as soon as they can, I mean, as soon as they're out of their parents' house, they're walking away from the church. And only about 1/3 or so continue in the church in those late teens and 20s. There's an article on Fox News, and it was reported widely from a number of different sources, but talking about what they call religious nuns, not N-U-N, but N-O-N-E-S. These are people who, when you ask them if they're religious, they'll say, I'm not really religious at all. I don't have a religious affiliation. I'm a nun, in the box about what church I go to or what faith system I follow. In this report, it said a new 2018 Pew Research Center report polled a growing group in America, religious nuns. This group describes themselves as, quote, nothing in particular when asked if they identify with a specific religious group. Now notice this, I put this in highlights here. The vast majority are ex-Christians, and most are under the age of 35. So there you go. Our children are going from being involved in the church because they have to leaving it and not affiliating with any religion and becoming religious nuns. Vast majority of those who are calling themselves religious nuns today are calling themselves that, and they were former believers. This is some information from Ken Ham. Ken Ham, as you know, is the president of Answers in Genesis. They're out of Kentucky, right near Cincinnati, and they built the Creation Museum. They built the Ark. I think they've just launched an Answers TV station so you can watch. They do a lot of apologetics. They talk about public schools a lot. They talk about evolution a lot and its influence on the mind and the thinking of our children. As I've tried to tell you before, our children are going to believe what you put into their minds, and that is going to eventually undermine what's in the Bible if we're not affirming it and answering the objections that they have, and we really don't do that. But here's what he said in a book called Already Gone. It's a book called Already Gone. He said, we've always been trying to prepare our kids for college, but it turns out that only 11% of those who have left the church were still attending during the college years. In other words, what he's saying is that most of the kids that we lost, when we lost them, we think that we're losing them when they get to college. But they did some research that suggested that we were losing them before they got to college. He goes on. Almost 90% of them, that's our children who leave the church, were lost in middle school and high school. So they're disconnecting from the church, they're disconnecting from God, they're disconnecting from the Bible in middle and high school, not in college. By the time they get to college, as the book title indicates, they're already gone. So he goes on, and about 40% are leaving the church during elementary and middle school. So you've got kids in their minds living in our homes and checking out from Christianity in elementary school and middle school. Here's the way these graphs would look in a pie chart fashion. The top one here, when kids check out from church, middle and high school, 89%. Only 11% in college. That's probably the reason we lose so many in college, that we think we're losing them in college. Is they really weren't lost in college. They just finally got out of the house and just made an official break from Christianity, from the church, from religion altogether. We just didn't know when they were being disconnected. And then down here at the bottom we see middle school 40% and high school 60%. So we're losing the kids in middle school as well. Middle school and elementary school and high school.